anyways, I wanted to clarify something that I feel like was a little bit confusing. I'm a very confusing person sometimes, but looking back at that video that not the one that I just recently made, but the one that I made that was like a brief update, I talked in that video about two things. So I talked about therapy, and I talked about having to go to the doctor to get this like mass checked out that was in my left breast. So I wanted to clarify that because I think it was a little bit confusing, because I think people may have taken it as being the same as my top surgery, which those are two separate things. So when I was like 16, 17, I'm not sure when it first appeared, but yeah, it was like 16, 17, I had this lump in my breast that was like maybe like an inch to an inch and a half wide. And because they didn't know what it was, and you know, obviously it could be cancer, I had to go to the doctor and they had to do a surgical procedure. I mean, I don't know if I would call it all of that, because it wasn't like I was, you know, put to sleep or under anesthesia or anything like that. But what they did was they went in there and they cut a small slit, and they went in there and they took like a sample of the mass, and then they tested it to make sure that it was not malignant. I think that's the word. I don't know. Anyways, just to make sure that it wasn't something that needed to be addressed and needed to be removed as soon as possible. So obviously it ended up not being that. I think they were just like, you know, it's just you know, breast tissue, there's nothing wrong with it, but keep watching it just to make sure. You know, obviously I wasn't too concerned because I had already planned on getting top surgery in the near future, which obviously would remove all of that, including, you know, my breast tissue and that lump as well. So that, just to clarify that if that was confusing, I never had cancer. That little surgery was separate from my actual top surgery, which I went down to Florida for. But yeah, and then the next thing that I wanted to talk about was gender therapy. And I know this is something that I feel like there's a lot of, I don't even know. Let me begin with this. So what I have heard, and this kind of ties into detransitioning and people feeling like, or some people feeling like the process of getting the diagnosis is not as much as a thing anymore, at least from what I have heard. But when I transitioned, it was required that you go see a gender specific therapist in order to get actually diagnosed with what they called back then gender identity disorder. Now, obviously that term is way outdated, but back then it was actually considered a disorder. And in order for you to get testosterone and to get top surgery, you had to have that diagnosis, as well as a lot of letters written by your therapist and your doctor confirming that you were actually trans in order to start hormone therapy and top surgery. So I know from what I've heard, that doesn't seem to be a thing, and this kind of ties into detransitioning. So again, like I said before, you know, I don't think anybody should have to prove that they're trans, or you know who you are. However, I do think it is important that people go to some counseling or do some counseling before they do anything permanent. So anything permanent obviously includes like hormones or surgery. And the reason why I say this is because I think like there are and there can be a lot of issues that a person can be dealing with that can masquerade, that's a big word, I hope I used that right, as gender identity disorder, where later down the road some people have found out that they were struggling with other issues, and it wasn't actually gender identity disorder. So that's the part where I think it is important to to go to a therapist and to get therapy and to make sure that you are going down the right path, just for the sake of yourself, not really for anybody else, but just to make sure that you know that you are, aware of what you're doing and okay with it, and know the, not the consequences, but know the effects, and know that some things are not reversible. And because at the end of the day, I don't think anybody wants to go through a whole process and then realize that, oh shit, that wasn't for me. I wish I had spent a little bit more time thinking about this. So in that light, I think it is important to get some counseling. I don't think anybody really needs to be diagnosed. Obviously that's not a thing. It's not. I think it's not even considered a disorder anymore. But yeah, so that's just to clarify those two things. The lump in my breast, and then therapy. If you guys want me to talk more about therapy and what it includes, I mean, it wasn't really that extensive. It was 4 months long. It wasn't years that I had to go to therapy. But basically in therapy, I don't remember that much, but I remember us just talking about my feelings, obviously, surrounding my gender identity, my body, and how I felt about it. And yeah, I mean, I think that's pretty much it. So the next video, I'm trying to decide if my next video should be about my name change or about the things that I use during sex or just in my everyday. And the videos that I did back then on this, I titled the videos Gears and Gadgets. I'm so embarrassed by that because it sounds like I'm what's that movie, Inspector Gadget? I don't even know why I did that. But anyways, it's, there's a lot of things and items that trans people use or can use. Not everybody decides to use certain things. I used to actually use more things in the past than now, just because I was a lot less comfortable with my body. And I'm not saying being comfortable with your body has to do with using things, but I don't know, I used to pack every day. I used to stand to pee all of the time. My girlfriend would carry my STP device in her purse all the time, because if I didn't have it, I would freak out and I can't go to the bathroom. I can't do this. Obviously I used to have a binder. I obviously don't have that anymore because I don't have breasts. But yeah, there was just a whole bunch of stuff that I used to use, and I think it's cool to go back and to look at those things and to talk about them and to review them. And it's also crazy to look back at some of those products that were still very much in the beginning stages, and then to look at the products now and just how much like more realistic they look. Like these prosthetics be looking like straight up penis. Like I'm sorry, but like back then it was kind of just like this floppy little piece of like silicone in your pants, where now it's like, you know, they got the pubic hair that be looking real, they got the packers that like move very realistically, look realistic. It's just, it's crazy. It's crazy to also think about like in 40 years what things are gonna look like. I mean, I feel like at some point it's gonna get to a point where if you are trans, like the things that they have for trans people are gonna be so close to what people like the real thing. Like if you know, have a lot of bottom dysphoria and you want a penis, like they have 2 surgeries now, but you know, none of them are perfect. But I think as time goes on and technology gets better and better, I think there will be products and surgeries that are much more like realistic and like just look like, you know, the real thing and function like the real thing, and vice versa, you know, for, you know, trans women as well. I mean, you know, breasts and, you know, facial feminization and yeah, I don't know what else. I don't even know. The construction of the vagina, which actually is a lot more easier. Bottom surgery is a lot more successful for trans women than it actually is for trans men. Anyways, I'm just rambling, but I'm gonna be doing those videos in the next couple of something, I don't know, we'll see. And yeah, alright guys, peace.